You walk into a crowded room. Maybe you're 5 minutes late, or maybe you're wearing a shirt you weren't quite sure about. As you cross the threshold, your chest tightens. You feel the heat rising in your neck. You are absolutely convinced that every single set of eyes has shifted to you. You feel like a specimen under a microscope. You start overthinking every micro movement, how you're walking, what your hands are doing, whether your facial expression looks natural. You replay the scene in your head later, obsessing over that one awkward thing you said, convinced that everyone else is talking about it right now. You spend hours curating your social media, terrified that one wrong caption or one unflattering angle will ruin your reputation. You hold back your real opinions in meetings because you're afraid of looking stupid. You don't dance at the wedding. You don't ask for the number. You live your life in a state of constant low-grade performance, performing for an audience that you assume is judging your every move. It's exhausting. It's paralyzing. And here is the brutal, liberating truth that your brain is hiding from you. Nobody cares. Not in a mean way, in a busy way. While you are worrying about how you look to them, they are worrying about how they look to you. You're suffering from a psychological glitch called the spotlight effect. It is the phenomenon where we drastically overestimate how much other people notice our appearance, our behavior, and our mistakes. You think you're walking through life under a high-powered stage light, but the reality is, everyone else is fumbling around in the dark, obsessed with their own spotlight. It feels real, though. That's the problem. The anxiety isn't fake, even if the judgment is. So you're not crazy for feeling this pressure. You aren't vain, and you aren't self-absorbed in a malicious way. This is actually a standard operating feature of the human operating system. But it's a feature that hasn't received a software update in about 50,000 years, and it is actively ruining your ability to enjoy your life today. To understand why your brain lies to you like this, you have to understand the machinery behind the curtain. The spotlight effect comes from a cognitive bias called anchoring. Basically, you are the center of your own universe. You live inside your own head 24/7. You are painfully aware of every blemish on your skin, every stumble in your speech, and every stain on your shirt because you were there for all of it. Your internal experience is loud and high definition. When you try to guess how much other people notice you, you use your own experience as an anchor or starting point. You know you are anxious, so you assume they can see the anxiety. You know you feel awkward, so you assume you look awkward. You try to adjust this perspective to account for the fact that they are different people, but your brain is lazy. It doesn't adjust enough. You assume their view of you is almost as high definition as your view of yourself, but it's not. To them, you are a background character in the movie of their life. Researchers proved this in a famous experiment back in 2000. They forced college students to wear a bright yellow, embarrassing t-shirt featuring a picture of Barry Manilow and walk into a room full of other students. The students wearing the shirt were mortified. They predicted that at least 50% of the room would notice the shirt and judge them for it. The reality? Less than 25% even noticed the shirt existed, and even fewer actually cared. The students' anxiety was based on a mathematical error. They overestimated the world's attention by double. But why did we evolve to be this paranoid? Why would nature design us to feel so watched? It goes back to survival. For our ancestors, social standing was life or death. If you were the weird one, the incompetent one, or the one who broke the social norms, you risked being kicked out of the tribe. And in the wild, solitude meant death. So, your brain developed a hypersensitive alarm system to keep you in check. It evolved to make you feel watched so that you would behave. That feeling of everyone is looking at me is essentially a shock collar designed to keep you from doing anything that might get you exiled. And while this happens to everyone, the flavor of it can shift depending on who you are. Research suggests that while the mechanism is universal, the pressure points differ. For women, the spotlight often feels brightest on physical appearance and social cohesion, driven by centuries of social conditioning to be pleasant and presentable. For men, the spotlight often burns hottest on competence and status, the fear of looking weak or incapable. But the internal result is the same. You shrink, you hide, you modify your behavior to appease an audience that is mostly imaginary. And this is where the psychology gets darker, because you aren't just overestimating how much people notice your bad moments. You're also suffering from something called the illusion of transparency. This is the false belief that your internal emotional state is leaking out for everyone to see. You think when you're nervous, everyone knows you're nervous. You think when you're lying, it's written on your forehead. But the data shows that people are terrible mind readers. You might feel like your heart is pounding out of your chest and your hands are shaking, but to the outside observer, you just look quiet or normal. The gap between how you feel inside and how you appear outside is massive. But because you don't realize this gap exists, you act weird to compensate for the anxiety you think they are seeing, which ironically creates the awkwardness you were trying to avoid. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. This trap keeps you stuck in a very specific, limited version of your life. Think about the things you haven't done because of the spotlight effect. The clothes you didn't wear because people would stare. The question you didn't ask in the meeting because people would think I'm dumb. The gym you didn't join because everyone will look at me working out. You're making decisions based on data that is 100% false.
You are letting ghosts run your life. And we have to talk about the modern amplifier of this, social media. Social media monetizes the spotlight effect. It turns the imaginary audience into a potentially real one. It trains your brain to believe that you are being watched, scored, and judged at all times. But even there, the spotlight effect applies. You stress over the caption for 20 minutes, but most people scroll past your post in 0.5 seconds. They aren't analyzing your life. They are looking for a dopamine hit for themselves. Even online, you are content to be consumed, not a person to be studied. It's important to acknowledge here that for some people, this feeling isn't just a quirk, it's a cage. If you have a history of trauma or severe bullying, this hypervigilance isn't just vanity, it's a safety mechanism. If you were in a home or a relationship where you were watched constantly, where one wrong move resulted in punishment, your brain's spotlight setting is stuck on high for a reason. That's not something you can just get over. If the feeling of being watched makes you feel unsafe rather than just embarrassed, that's your nervous system remembering a real threat. However, for most everyday scenarios, this pattern is a distortion, not a danger. And the tragedy is that by trying to control how people see you, you actually prevent them from connecting with you. People connect with humanity, with roughness, with authenticity. When you polish yourself into a perfectly acceptable robot to avoid the spotlight, you become Teflon. Nothing sticks to you. No criticism, sure, but no love either. You become invisible in the worst way, hiding in plain sight. So, how do we turn the spotlight off? How do you walk into a room and just exist? The solution isn't to convince yourself that you're awesome. The solution is to realize that you are irrelevant in the most beautiful way possible. You need to start with the "so what" drill. This is a cognitive behavioral technique to stop the spiral. Let's say you trip in public. Your brain says, "Everyone saw that. They think I'm an idiot." You need to ask, "Okay, so what? Let's play it out. Let's say they did see it. Let's say 5 strangers on the street think you were clumsy. So what? Does your bank account change? Does your family stop loving you? Does the sun stop burning? No. The worst-case scenario is that a stranger has a fleeting thought about you that lasts 3 seconds and then is deleted from their memory forever. When you actually look at the consequence, the fear dissolves. Next, you need to use the external focus shift. The spotlight effect feeds on internal focus, monitoring your own heartbeat, your own thoughts. To break it, you have to turn your attention outward. When you walk into that party, instead of wondering, "How do I look?" give yourself a mission. I need to find out 3 interesting things about the people here. Look at the architecture. Look at the colors of the wall. Listen to the specific words people are using. When your brain is busy processing external data, it doesn't have the bandwidth to run the self-judgment script. You physically cannot be self-conscious and curious at the exact same time. And then you have to test reality. You have to conduct what psychologists call behavioral experiments. You need to intentionally embarrass yourself. I know, this sounds like a nightmare, but start small. Wear a shirt with a small stain on it to the grocery store. Deliberately stutter on a word when ordering coffee. Drop a pen in a quiet room. Do these things on purpose, and then, this is the crucial part, look around. Watch the reaction. You will be shocked by what you find. You will see that nobody gasps, nobody points, most people won't even look up from their phones. You will realize that the world is indifferent to your small failures. And this realization is the key to the cage. Once you prove to your amygdala, your fear center, that the social punishment doesn't come, the anxiety begins to fade. You desensitize yourself to the spotlight. This is especially powerful for the illusion of transparency. Next time you feel nervous talking to someone, tell them. Say, "I'm actually a little nervous right now." Watch what happens. You shatter the illusion. You take control of the narrative. And usually, the other person will say, "Oh wow, really? You seem so calm." And just like that, the pressure valve releases. It's not about becoming arrogant or not caring about people at all. It's about recalibrating your importance in the grand scheme of things. It is incredibly heavy to carry the weight of the world's attention. Putting that weight down is the kindest thing you can do for yourself. And once you truly get this, once you really understand that nobody is watching, everything changes. The world opens up. You realize that you have been living in a prison with the door unlocked. You can wear the weird outfit. You can start the YouTube channel. You can dance badly. You can ask for the promotion. Because the audience you were terrified of, they went home years ago. You start to see that the people you were trying to impress are just as scared, just as insecure, and just as self-focused as you are. They aren't judges, they're fellow prisoners of their own egos, and this creates empathy. Instead of fearing them, you can relate to them. You stop walking into rooms wondering if they like you, and you start wondering if you like them. The power dynamic shifts completely. 6 months from now, you could be living a life that is defined by what you want, not by what you are afraid they will think. You will look back at the version of you that stayed home or stayed quiet, and you will feel a mix of compassion and relief. You will realize that your anonymity is actually freedom. The spotlight was never real. It was a reflection of your own fears projected onto the faces of others. And now that you know the trick, you can step out of the light and into the real world. You can stop performing and start living. Because the truth is, no one is watching. And that means you can finally do whatever the hell you want.